Romantic comedies have been lying to us for years, and we love them for it. Apparently, you can bump into someone one time, and it's fate. You can destroy someone's entire career and still end up together, looking at you how to lose a guy in 10 days. And yet, these movies keep pulling us in. They are delightful and capable of instantly improving our mood. They don't ask for much, just two people with undeniable chemistry, a series of absurd yet relatable misunderstandings, and an ending that leaves us convinced that love really is all around, despite what our inbox full of unread text suggests. They thrive on charm, on optimism, on the idea that grand gestures and snappy banter can fix almost anything. They've been around forever, evolving from screwball comedies of the 30s and 40s to the golden era of the 90s and early 2000s, and then, well, taking a bit of a nap. But they always come back, because no matter how many gritty dramas or superhero blockbusters we get, there's something deeply satisfying about watching two people fumble their way toward love while the universe conspires to throw every absurd obstacle in their way. But rom-coms aren't just about the romance. They're about the comedy, the absurdity of relationships, the way love turns people into total weirdos, the moments of pure chaos that somehow lead to happily ever after. The best ones know how to balance humor and heart, making us laugh and swoon, often in the same scene. It's why My Best Friend's Wedding dared to give us a protagonist who is kind of a nightmare and still made us root for her. And it's why Bridget Jones's Diary gave us a clumsy, relatable heroine instead of an impossibly polished leading lady. What's wild is that they used to be box office royalty. From the early 90s through the mid-2000s, they were the thing, and they all had that perfect mix of charm, humor, and unrealistic real estate. These movies weren't just about romance, though. They gave us something to wish for. Not just love, but the specific kind of love where someone chases you through an airport. Or your biggest problem to picking between Hugh Grant and some other ridiculously charming person. The best rom-coms strike that perfect balance between ridiculous and heartfelt. You know it when you see it. It's Julia Roberts standing in front of Hugh Grant, just a girl asking him to love her. It's Matthew McConaughey leaning against something, usually in a very expensive-looking suit, drawling out some vaguely poetic nonsense about fate. And every once in a while, it's an entirely new take on romance that somehow still feels like an old friend. Amelie looking at you. Of course, the magic of this genre isn't just about the love story, it's about the chaos leading up to it. These movies live for the grand gestures, the bigger, the better. Running through airports, interrupting weddings, making a public fool of yourself. Our chef's kiss in a movie, even though we know they'd be mortifying in real life. Casting, by the way, is everything. We love a good will they won't they. But if the leads don't have chemistry, the whole thing collapses like a bad souffle. That's why some of these movies feel like lightning in a bottle. Pairing up actors who bring something unexpected to the table. Like Sandra Bullock and Ryan Reynolds in The Proposal. Who saw that coming? No one, not even the studio. The movie was supposed to have Hugh Jackman as the male lead instead of Reynolds. No offense to Wolverine, but would it have worked? Hard to say. And let's not forget Notting Hill, which somehow convinced us that Julia Roberts, the biggest movie star in the world, could believably fall in love with a slightly disheveled Hugh Grant running a failing bookshop. On the other hand, we almost got entirely different versions of these movies. Shakespeare in Love nearly starred Julia Roberts, but she backed out when Daniel Day-Lewis refused to play Shakespeare. Can you imagine? That movie won Best Picture. And it almost never happened because Daniel Day-Lewis was probably off method acting as a 17th century shoemaker or something. Meg Ryan as Pretty Woman's Vivian? Yep, she turned it down. Probably because the original script was way darker, like no fairy tale ending kind of dark. More on that later on. Good call, Meg. On the other end, Julia Roberts turned down Ryan's role in You've Got Mail. Tom Hanks and Jerry Maguire. Cameron Crowe, the director, wrote Tom Cruise's part with Tom Hanks in mind, but he couldn't commit due to his directorial debut in That Thing You Do. Charlize Theron in Sweet Home Alabama. She was considered, but Reese Witherspoon got it instead, proving yet again that Reese plus Southern accents equals instant box office success. Hitch was supposed to be Will Smith and Cameron Diaz, but she passed and we got Eva Mendes instead, which turned out perfect. Sometimes what we get is the best version of the movie, but there were some truly wild ideas in the pipeline. My Best Friend's Wedding ending was changed. Originally, Julia Roberts' character was supposed to meet a new guy played by John Corbett. But test audiences hated it, so they gave her that bittersweet dance with Rupert Everett instead. Honestly, way better. Pretty Woman, another example, could have been unrecognizable. The original script, titled $3,000, was a dark drama about sex work in Hollywood, and not a rom-com at all. Edward wasn't a charming, emotionally unavailable billionaire with a heart of gold. He was just emotionally unavailable. And the story ended with Vivian being thrown out onto the street. It was Disney that saw the potential for something more optimistic and hired director Gary Marshall to lighten things up. The result? One of the most iconic romantic comedies of all time. The best rom-coms also knew how to use their settings as an extra character. Notting Hill made London feel like the coziest, most magical place on earth. Midnight in Paris, regardless of your feelings about its director, made Paris look like the kind of place where time travel and love at first sight are completely reasonable. Crazy Rich Asians turned Singapore into the most glamorous destination imaginable. Even Sweet Home Alabama made small-town life look like an absolute dream, despite all the unresolved relationship drama hanging in the air. But maybe the best part of rom-coms is how they capture that awkward, exhilarating, terrifying, wonderful feeling of falling in love. The way it makes people do ridiculous things. They remind us that love doesn't have to be perfect or logical. It just has to be real. And that's why, no matter how much Hollywood tries to push them aside in favor of bigger, flashier blockbusters, rom-coms will always find a way back. Because deep down, we all want to believe in love, even if it comes with a side of embarrassing misunderstandings and dramatic public declarations. And that no matter how cynical we pretend to be, we all secretly want someone to chase us down in the rain. And sometimes, a rom-com manages to sneak in social commentary while still making us swoon. What Women Want played with gender roles with huge levels of success. Crazy Rich Asians made Hollywood remember that diversity sells, and Knocked Up leaned into the messiness of relationships in a way that was almost too real. And if there's one thing we've learned from rom-coms, it's love is messy, it's ridiculous, and it is always worth the risk. Now, looking at the chart, it's clear that the top movies have amassed huge numbers, and most of them aren't from this millennium. In fact, only 2 of the top 10 are from the last 25 years, with the other 8 hailing from the 90s. Pretty Woman even reached the billion-dollar mark in last year's ticket prices. To put its popularity into perspective, if you added its earnings to the 2024 yearly box office, it would have ranked number 3 worldwide, right behind Inside Out 2 and Deadpool and Wolverine. It would have outpaced Moana 2, Despicable Me 4, Wicked, and Dune Part 2. In other words, Pretty Woman nearly made as much money as all 3 Sonic movies combined. And this isn't a one-off occurrence. The top 5 movies on this chart would easily break into the top 10 grossing films worldwide in 2024.